प्रेसिडेंट पुतिन के साथ, उसका कितना बड़ा योगदान था इसको इस डिक्लेरेशन को ला पाने में? China played in bringing this. What role has China played in bringing this declaration?
एक क्वेश्चन था
One more.
sitting there, yeah, behind you. एक क्वेश्चन था
Sitting there, yeah, behind you. One more.
sitting there, yeah, behind you.
सर प्रणय उपाध्याय हूँ जी न्यूज़ से। मेरा सवाल इस चीज़ को लेकर है कि अफ्रीकन यूनियन का जो G20 मेरा सवाल इस चीज़ को लेकर है ये अपने आप में काफी रिकॉर्ड टाइम में हुआ है। जून में मेरा सवाल इस चीज़ को लेकर है कि अफ्रीकन यूनियन का जो G20 मेरा सवाल इस चीज़ को लेकर है ये अपने आप में काफी रिकॉर्ड टाइम में हुआ है। क्या कुछ इसके पीछे हुआ अफ्रीकन यूनियन का जो G20 मेरा सवाल इस चीज़ को लेकर है ये अपने आप में काफी रिकॉर्ड टाइम में हुआ है। क्या कुछ इसके पीछे हुआ?
Sir.
Maybe Finance Minister would like to.
On the inflation question, globally, of course, it's going to have an impact the moment it is executed. The understanding is executed and the grain movements start from Russia and from Ukraine. So, particularly countries which have been hard pressed, which have originally and for a very long time depended on grains coming from these two countries, are now waiting to have that back again. As a result, I think it will cool off inflation, particularly in food grains. Domestically, we've had very little grains coming in. Except for edible oil, particularly sunflower oil, our imports have not been so much dependent on these countries. There are times when we've brought in extra edible oil, and therefore to that extent, yes, it will certainly have an impact on domestic inflation as well. But largely, India's domestic inflation is affected by vagaries of the monsoon or supply side problems. Global impact is not as much as countries which are outside dependent on grains coming completely for their consumption from outside.
If I could respond to the question whether this is a world of monthly alignment. I mean, first of all, when we are talking about G20, let us remember that this is a forum for international economic cooperation. Its primary focus is on economic growth and development. And in a way, the G20 itself is a reflection of multipolarity. The fact that there was, in a way, the salience of G7 was a decade ago replaced by the salience of the G20. I think that itself was a statement. Now, what you see before you in terms of the leaders' declaration and the discussions that are going on are obviously discussions among a very broad, very diverse range of countries at different levels of economic development, whose economic and social, cultural composition is quite different from each other. So I think in that sense it's quite reasonable to assume that there is a certain there's a spectrum of views and interests out here which we have tried to harmonize to produce the declaration. The question on counter-terrorism, what happens? I would draw your attention to paragraphs 74 and 75 of the leaders' declaration. 75 speaks about the role of the FATF because clearly the financing of terrorism is a very strong concern which the entire international community, not just the G20, shares. The 74 deals with illicit trafficking and diversion of small arms and light weapons. So I think these are concerns. So within the G20, I think these conversations are quite helpful. But obviously in terms of policy action, they will be carried into their particular mechanisms and forums which focus on the issue. With regard to the to the comparison with the Bali declaration, I would only say Bali was Bali and New Delhi is New Delhi. I mean, Bali was a year ago. The context, the situation was different. Many things have happened since then. In fact, if you see in the geopolitical segment of the leaders' declaration, there are in totality 8 paragraphs